What is up, my cough country people? You know who it is. It's me. It's Steve with the news. And I'm excited today. We got a whole gaggle of news. There's been so much going on in the world, I can't contain it. We're going to start off. Where are we starting off? We're starting off right here. We actually got to sit down with Dr. J. We're doing a new dive into what's in your marijuana. We're going to break apart that bud and figure out all the different components that you are smoking. And we sat down with Dr. J, a real-life medical marijuana doctor. Yeah, not that Dr. J. And she's going to help us break into all the different chemicals and things. You're not going to want to miss it. She's got a lot of cool things to say. Check that out. Then we move over to New York. Kathy Hochul, the governor, is up in their game trying to stamp out the illegal dispensaries in the state. Hasn't worked yet. I'll tell you how it's going so far. Then we go across the pond to the UK where they're freaking out about a little chemical they found in the vapes that really shouldn't be there. I'll tell you what it is in just a minute. Then we come back across to this country over to New Mexico. Guys, the feds over in New Mexico legitimately are stealing state legal cannabis from dispensaries. I'll tell you why nobody can do anything about it. I'll tell you why in just a minute. And then what do we round up? We round up back over the pond in Europe, in Germany, with the forefront of legal cannabis. And but they're still not too wild about legal weed, and it might affect Oktoberfest, and we're going to get into that. And finally, we hit up Florida, where the Attorney General of the state just got straight up faced by the Supreme Court, who is officially allowing legal cannabis to appear on the November ballot. That's a really exciting one. I'll tell you why. All that's coming right now on Cough Country News. Here we go.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.
All right, guys, welcome
From
back
the Cough
to
Country
the
News Desk. It's
desk.
Steve with your cannabis news.
That's right. So we're going to start off sitting down with Dr. J. We're doing a dive into what's in your marijuana. We're looking at that alphabet soup on your label and helping you break down what actually you're consuming and what it's doing in your body. Now, Dr. J is not that doctor you're thinking of. She's a legit, live, red-blooded physician, a medical professional, and she specializes in medical marijuana. And she sat down with me to help break apart what is CBN. Take a look, see what she had to say. Yeah. So tell me, what the heck is CBN actually? What is it?
Yeah, so CBN is short for cannabinol, which is a minor cannabinoid, so basically not THC or CBD. That doesn't have nearly as much data or research behind it as far as what it does in the human body compared to THC or CBD, but it still has some clinically significant, some meaningful effects for folks who are looking for certain symptom relief or certain effects from their cannabinoids.
Okay. Now it's so where do we get CBN? Is it naturally present in the plant?
So CBN comes from the breakdown of THC due to oxidation. So basically, light, heat, hot temperature, and exposure to oxygen will cause the degradation of THC into CBN.
Okay. Is it interacting with us in the same way? Am I going to get high if I rolled a whole J of CBN here?
So it's what's called a partial agonist at both the CB1 and CB2 receptors, our most common cannabis receptors in our endocannabinoid system. And what that means is it's about a quarter of the strength of THC at the CB1 receptor, which means roughly about a quarter of the psychoactivity or a quarter of the high or the other feelings you would get from THC. That's what you can get from CBN, in addition to some other effects that have been studied a little more closely.
Okay. And actually, what are some of those effects it has in the human body? It's an anti-inflammatory, am I right?
That's correct. Yep, it's an anti-inflammatory, and what it's been studied most for is for being a sedative for helping people sleep.
Okay.
So unlike some of the other minor cannabinoids, there have actually been several human studies, not just mouse studies, that show that CBN, regardless of whether you have it with or without CBD, will help improve your sleep and improve the time it takes to fall asleep. And there are also studies that show that CBN works in synergy with THC, so they work even better together to help one fall asleep and stay asleep.
Okay. So it works synergistically with THC. Does it do the same with the CBD, or do they not jive together?
The studies have showed that CBD plus CBN does not help one sleep more than just CBN alone.
Okay, okay. But the sleep effects are enhanced with THC specifically.
Yeah, that's right. Yep,
Okay.
orally even. So that's really nice. You don't have to smoke anything or vape anything.
Okay. And do you know how effective it is on its own without THC or anything else helping it along? Does it need a helping hand?
Not necessarily. It does work significantly better with THC, and because it's from the degradation of THC, that's why a lot of times you will see it only in products with THC. A lot of the times you'll see it added in 1 or 2 milligram amounts in edibles, especially gummies, but the meaningful dosing is typically 5 milligrams to 20 milligrams.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of a larger dose makes it more medically effective.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, 5 to 20 milligrams is what they found to be most effective.
So with your patients, is there ever a
Bebop.
situation where you would kind of direct your patients to pursue CBN on its own, like isolated? Or would you always recommend kind of pursuing it
Because it's
together?
about a quarter of the strength of THC at the CD1 receptor, and we think that its sleep enhancing qualities are probably due to activity at the CD1 receptor. We're not sure about any other activities at other receptors that would cause it to help us sleep better. It's probably best taken in conjunction with THC. If you take it on its own, you'd probably want to get an isolated tincture form because it'd be hard to find it at affordable cost in gummies at an effective dose like 5 milligrams of CBN.
Mm.
So most of the time when I see it, it's in tincture form or oil form, and then you can dose it much higher levels.
Okay. And do you think that's the best way to kind of consume it? Or like ingesting or oral mucus or like what's
I
the
think
best
so,
way to
yeah.
kind of get it in your system here?
I definitely think orally because especially if someone's going to be using it to help them sleep, you want it to be a little bit longer acting. And when we have edibles on board rather than smoking or vaping, which has a peak in our system much quicker than taking an edible, you want that in your system for 4 to 6 hours. You want to eat it. You want it to be longer lasting when you're trying to sleep, as opposed to waking up, 2 hours into your sleep and having to redose and then risk feeling groggy in the morning.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. That was Dr. J. Guys, Dr. J, thank you so much for helping us break down what is CBN. Guys, keep an eye out. We did a whole full interview with Dr. J, kind of getting into the ins and outs of being a medical marijuana professional. Definitely keep an eye out for that. Lots of information there as well. Guys, we'll be right back in just a second with a word from the sponsor. Tons of news left. Don't go anywhere. Lots of news. Lots of news.
This is a flower, and this is a distraction. But while the distraction might grab your attention, it will never change the fact that this is medicine.
All right, guys, we're going over to New York. That has been plagued, absolutely plagued with illegal dispensaries, choking out the legal ones that have been able to open up in the state. And elected officials have been under the gun ever since the last governor decriminalized it to get this whole thing figured out. They're working toward a deal to let local governments kind of step in and crack down where they need to. It's been a little over 3 years since New York went legal, and in that time, they've only been able to open up a little over 100 licensed dispensaries in the whole state, the entire state. Just as a point of reference, there's over 2,000 illegal ones that they know about in New York City alone. And all those illegal dispensaries are there just to meet the demand that is already present in the state. Now, there was supposed to be a legal market that was put into place way back when this all started, but that was all bungled and delayed, and the new governor, Kathy Hochul, says herself, it's been an absolute disaster. The New York cannabis rollout is an embarrassment to national cannabis programs everywhere. One of the former police chief even said, a lot of common sense errors occurred. Who would have thought? All done in the name of social equity. They just failed to recognize they were creating a bigger problem. Definitely speaks volumes there. So basically, they want to increase law enforcement without restarting that war on drugs, if they can even do that. But even if they do clamp down on these illegal stores, the demand is still going to be there. If they don't open up more licensed shops, that crackdown is going to do absolutely nothing for them. Now, Cuomo, the previous governor, found himself in political trouble when he began the whole legal cannabis campaign, and he failed to put in any regulators in place to kind of get the thing going. Then they were supposed to help entrepreneurs that had been affected by the war on drugs, had records and things like this. They were going to give them a leg up to start early in the market before bigger companies got in. But that whole thing was mismanaged, underfunded, and all went to hell. And this whole time, the program has been getting just bombarded with lawsuits that have been slowing them down as well. So it has not been going well for New York. Now, most states that have been able to get up and going allowed existing operators in the state to jump into recreational sales. Basically, big multi-state or operators, kind of corporate cannabis, giving them a huge leg up to mom and pop shops that have to start up and expand pretty much from nothing. Now the government is trying to put writing this ship into their actual budget. Kathy Hochul, the governor, wants to padlock the doors of offending businesses. Now, previously, they dropped fines all over the place, but it would take months and months and months to collect them if they ever could. And this whole time, the businesses could operate freely. So she wants to put a lock on the door to stop that one. And the stores she can't put a lock on, she wants to revoke their licenses for other things like tobacco and liquor, cigarettes, and the lottery to really cut their funding off there. So they're also trying to go after the landlords, right? They're dropping $50,000 fines on anybody who, or on any landlords that knowingly lease to unlicensed dispensaries. So that's definitely a heavy hit. So they're also trying to let local cops do the enforcing. Now, before there was certain organizations that were the only ones allowed to step in and enforce any of these rules. But they want to change that and allow each jurisdiction to kind of enforce it for themselves. And finally, they're trying to set up a task force in the state to figure out where all this illegal weed is coming from and shut down the avenues that it's being brought into the state through. Then we go over the pond, over to UK, where officials are absolutely freaking out. There's an outcry because they found vape cartridges with trace amounts of xylazine in them. Now, xylazine is a scary thing. It's a powerful sedative, normally only used in large animals. They affectionately call it the zombie drug, as it's so deadly in humans, even a small amount, and it has really, really powerful, noticeable effects. Xylazine is normally mixed with heroin and fentanyl, cutting those harder drugs into something that they affectionately call trank. Such a nice name. But they're also starting to see it pop up in pills now, like pills being sold as codeine, diazepam, and Valium. Vape is just kind of the latest iteration of what officials are seeing at this point. So xylazine is a large animal sedative usually used with horses and cattle. So it's a non-opioid sedative, which means that it inhibits the transmission of brain impulses to the central nervous system, absolutely shutting it down. And it's on its own, people aren't too worried, but they are scared when they're cutting it with heavy illegal drugs. That's what's scaring real officials, and especially in the U.S. with the Biden administration labeling it as an official emerging threat in the country. And there's an actual 6-point plan to go after it. When it's mixed with other sedatives, there are some pretty hefty symptoms that you might notice. Difficulty breathing, low blood pressure, slowed heart rate. You get withdrawal symptoms, even death in extreme cases, and that's why it's popping up now. In fact, the UK is so worried about a US-style epidemic, they're moving xylazine up the drug classification system and increasing testing in toxicology labs to try to catch it sooner. Guys, we're going to be right back in just a minute. Another message from our sponsor, but we got more news coming. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
This is a flower. Some people might try to tell you that it's a Schedule I controlled substance. They might scream drugs, drugs, drugs over and over and over again. They might put drugs in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a drug, but it's not. This is medicine.
Hey, welcome back, guys. I told you we'd be back, and of course, we got more news for you. Whew, it's getting hot with the news in here. We're going over to New Mexico now. Where it's been up to state congressmen, even the governor, to talk to Homeland Security to try to get them to stop the Customs Border Police from legitimately stealing state legal marijuana. In every other sense of the word, this marijuana is completely legal in this state, but these federal officials are seizing it left and right. So the Customs Border Police, they're officially in charge of the border crossings in the country, right? They monitor those, but they also monitor inspection stations throughout the border region on all the major highways within 100 miles of the border, right? And these are federal police enforcing federal laws. And so far, they've seized hundreds of thousands of dollars of product from state licensed dispensaries. Now, New Mexico is not the only state on the border here, but they seem to be the only state with this issue. When the officials involved were contacted about this, they pretty much showed they had no plans of stopping whatsoever. So companies have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars to this, and they've gone together and demanded that this customs border policy be changed and that the seized product be returned to businesses that it was taken from. And thus far, they've gotten a whole lot of nothing, absolutely nothing from them. Not even any paperwork to mark the seizure. So cannabis in New Mexico is regulated through a seed-to-sale system. So if it goes missing, the state assumes that the dispensary is selling to the black market, and that's a no-no for them. So the dispensaries at this point don't even know what to tell the state. Like, I don't even know how to, they don't even know how to tell them that the government took it. And it seems to be happening in the same exact spot, which is a very funny thing. It's going from a product that's being shipped north from Las Cruces in New Mexico to Albuquerque for laboratory testing. And it's consistently being seized from the Las Cruces area. Now, the senators poked into it, the governor has poked into it, and Homeland Security just comes back and says, who cares? These guys are making a ton of money. And the Customs Border people are saying, don't get mad at us. We're just enforcing federal regulation. And cannabis is illegal federally and is subject to seizure at Customs and Border checkpoints. So honestly, to me, it sounds like some dude with a big gun and a bigger belt buckle going, this is my state. I'll do what I want. Y'all can kiss my ass. So kind of one of these guys here. And insiders are even saying that this hasn't been a problem before. It really hasn't. And it's feeling like a targeted approach. So some people have brought this issue up in the first place when New Mexico first went recreational. And they said this could be a problem. They moved their businesses in order to avoid it. Other people are saying that it's an influx of growers in the state that's the reason we're seeing more seizures. But thus far, there's really been no explanation whatsoever that's been given at all. And at this point, the feds fully have a license to steal weed from state licensed dispensaries. So over the water again in Germany, in the forefront of cannabis legalization in Europe. Cannabis has officially become legalized. Yay, we're excited about it. But when Oktoberfest rolls around, don't go thinking you're going to be able to light up with that frosty liter. Oh, no, no, no. In the southern state of Bavaria, actually the legitimate original home of Oktoberfest, they're thinking they need to reel in this legal cannabis just a bit. So they want to ban consumption of cannabis from many beer gardens, public festivals, or restaurant terraces, which, if you think about it, isn't too wild. Lots of people have banned cannabis consumption in public spaces, so I'll give them that. An official said a family festival like Oktoberfest and cannabis consumption just don't go together. Now, so of course, Oktoberfest is going to be weed-free this year. That's what it's looking like. Now, if this were happening in the U.S., I might be inclined to point out that alcohol is just as dangerous, if not more so, than cannabis, and the irony is palpable of an alcohol festival banning cannabis for family fun and safety. But, guys, let's remember, we are in Germany here, the home of the Bierstein and the German beer purity laws, so yes, beer is actually family fun over here. So Germany actually only legalized in April. They just did it recently, and they are, like I said, in the forefront of cannabis legalization in Europe, but it took a long time and a lot of convincing for them to shore up the support for that move. And much of the country is still very hesitant in embracing legal cannabis. So each state is going to be able to decide how they want legality to kind of roll out. And just like in the U.S., opponents of legalization, they keep spouting the same thing. They're saying that kids are going to be able to smoke as much as they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. And Bavaria, the southern state, is relatively a very conservative place in Germany. They were not big fans of legal cannabis to begin with, so they're implementing the strictest interpretation of that law they possibly can, banning cannabis wherever it is that children may roam. Now, they should be learning from the U.S. and Canada's legalization that has proven again and again that legalization actually reduces the number of underage users. They do not increase them. Guys, we're going to do one more quick break, and then we're going to come back with a final story, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about what's going on in Cough Country. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is a flower, And this is a distraction. But while the distraction might grab your attention, it will never change the fact that this is medicine.
And then when I'm done with that, I'll go to 2. All right, guys, welcome back. That was quick, right? So in Florida just made some really huge moves. The Florida Supreme Court just body slammed the Attorney General in the state, Ashley Moody, by allowing the Marijuana Legalization Initiative to appear on the November ballot this year, letting voters decide for themselves if they want recreational marijuana, just like in Ohio. Now, the state's Attorney General, Ashley Moody, went up to the Supreme Court and she directly asked them to say no to this, siding with DeSantis, who's going around saying this whole thing, it's way too radical and the whole state is just going to smell like weed. For some reason, that's his only argument. I don't know why. But instead, the court sided with the marijuana advocates and allowed the initiative to go on the November ballot, giving it the green light to do so. But Moody, the Attorney General, Ashley Moody, kept trying to argue that Florida voters were too stupid to realize that if they voted for legal cannabis, that they wouldn't realize that it is still illegal nationally under the federal law. And she was saying that it wasn't clear. It didn't specifically say illegal. Now, Smart and Safe Florida, kind of the guys that are heading this legalization push, came in and said, I quote, "It strains credulity well past the breaking point to think that the average voter is unaware that marijuana will still be illegal at the federal level." I'm kind of agreeing with this, guys. But Moody just comes back and says, well, I don't know, most Americans can't name a single Supreme Court justice, as though that's some indication of their voters' inability to understand marijuana laws. Don't know where they're going with that. Now, Trulieve, one of the larger cannabis dispensaries that operates in Florida, is and who's running the show on this ballot initiative here. They donated over $40 million to get this thing going, and that's been most of their budget, if I'm being honest. And if the ballot legalizes, it'll set them up to be the biggest and the baddest dispensary in the state. And check out our story on Florida and the marijuana initiative on the ballot if you want to hear more about the monopolistic tendencies there and what's actually in that ballot. Definitely a good story there. So I will give Ashley Moody the benefit of the doubt here. She is actually worried about a monopoly. And that's kind of what Trulieve is setting up here. Quote, she said, "It'll entrench the sponsor's monopolistic stranglehold on the marijuana market to the detriment of Floridians." Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think she's actually looking out for the Florida voter here. I think she's actually trying to cancel marijuana in the state. But she is kind of right. A monopoly is bad for the customer, and that's kind of what Trulieve is doing here. They have more locations than anybody else in the state, so if it gets voted in, they'll be able to jump directly into recreational sales while also doing medical marijuana sales. So that'll give them a huge, huge leg up compared to the mom and pop entrepreneurs, the small business people that'll have to start up from scratch and expand from there. And if it is legalized, in the words of the ballot, there will also be no home grow allowed. And guys, I'm throwing a flag on the play. That's a huge one for me. I do not like that. That's a red flag. If a company has a corner on the market and they don't allow home grow, then it's not far from Floridians having to go to the company store to get their weed. That is a monopoly, and I don't like it. So if Moody actually went on more about that, focused on that, I might give her a little more credence, but she doesn't. She just goes around saying that voters will be able to walk around with pounds and pounds of marijuana on them at all times, like 24 other states haven't gone through this already. Come on, man. So obviously the courts disagreed with her, and they said the voters are going to decide for themselves whether the fate of medical or recreational cannabis in the state. So activists have got all the signatures they need to get this ballot or the initiative on the ballot, and the court was the last line for opponents to overturn the will of their dumb voters and get this thing out of the way. All the court really had to decide was the wording of the ballot clear, and did it violate the Florida state constitution? Both of those boxes were checked, so on the ballot it goes. They said, "We therefore approve the proposed amendment for placement on the ballot. No rehearing will be permitted." Funny, almost like they knew opponents of marijuana were just going to keep chucking rocks at the House for as long as they possibly could. All right. Guys, thank you so much. That has been the news. I appreciate you checking it out. Don't go anywhere, though. We've got coming up this week, Late Night Green is going to do their first show, their official show. I'm excited about it. I'm definitely going to check it out. You're going to want to watch that. Tune in. We did a full interview with the doctor, Dr. J, getting into the mind of a medical marijuana doctor. So that's going to be a really cool thing. That's going to be released separately, but you're going to want to check it out for sure. And guys, thank you so much. That's been Cough Country News. Be sure you like, subscribe, and follow wherever you are. We've got more stuff coming every single week. And around here, it's always no sticks, no seeds, just news, so you know it's going to be good. All right, check us out next time, guys. Thank you so much.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.
Did I miss anything?